Hey there, and welcome to Kristie Takes the Community, your go-to space for motivation, inspiration, and education. I'm Kristie, and this podcast is all about lifting each other up, supporting small businesses, and creating a stronger, more connected community. Each episode will dive into powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you grow, whether in life, business, or your own professional journey. Because when we come together, we thrive together. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's take the community to new heights. This is Kristie Takes the Community. Let's do this. Today, we have here my good friend and business partner, Joe. Joe, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit.
Hey, everybody. So my name is Joseph Travers, and I'm a loan officer with Main Street Home Loans. Pretty much everything real estate I like to dabble into. So everything along the lines from done some wholesaling, flips, and starting to work my way into some new builds. Pretty much like to learn something new every day. And that's pretty much it. Family guy, dad, and partner.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about your personal life as of right now. So you said you're a dad, and I know you have a couple little ones. What's that look like for you right now?
Hectic to say the least, and I'm sure every parent that's going to be listening to this can feel the same.
Yeah.
So I have my daughter, she's 7, and also my son who just turned 2. The energy between the two, oh my Lord. No, it's awesome though. It's awesome, obviously, just seeing them come into growing into themselves and their voices and personality. So it's fun.
Every season is, I think it's beautiful and amazing and so challenging, right? And then you look at the next season, right? Okay, we got toddlerhood. We have this, right? One thing I can say, and I'm sure you agree, is real estate has been a wonderful career in parenthood.
It's been very flexible.
Yeah.
You know, I will say that that's been one of the big pluses of it too, because don't get me wrong, as you know, family people ourselves, there's events you want to be at, you know, there's school stuff. So just having that flexibility just to be there more often and then obviously work on our own time has been, in my opinion, one of the most invaluable things about our career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it can be all over the place and it can be 24/7, but not having to ask permission to chaperone a field trip or go pick your little one up when they're sick from school. Sometimes there's like no amount of money that could replace that.
Nope.
So definitely is an interesting but wonderful career through parenthood.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, obviously it has its challenges. What's the Spider-Man phrase? A great power becomes great responsibility.
Wow. Facts.
Just as much as we can plan accordingly to be present at all these extracurricular events,
Right.
we got to whip ourselves back into shape. It's like, all right, it's grind time.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's a benefit nonetheless, and honestly, one of my most favorite benefits of what we do.
Yeah.
The money's great, the connections are great, but just being long story short, having control.
Yeah. Having control of where and when you can be present with your children throughout this career.
Correct.
I agree 100%. So Joe, with that being said, why don't you tell me a little bit about what brought you into the mortgage industry and real estate? Was there something in particular that was intriguing to you, that why you decided you wanted to invest, you wanted to look into the wholesaling world a little bit, and now the new builds? Tell me a little bit about how you got here.
So I was in corporate America for a long time. I was that dork that right out of high school went right into career. So I did financial industries, right in Citizens Bank for a very, very long time. So up until this date, I'm only 32 now, but in financial industries period, what really pushed me over the edge was when I was working there. And I had great experience at Citizen. This is not throwing dirt on anybody's name by any means. It's just I also understand I'm very young in a very antiquated business.
Right.
So it got to a point to where I was helping train a lot of wealth advisory teams and all that stuff. So I kind of wanted to put my hat in the ring to say, hey, I'm already training the folks.
Yeah.
Like, can I have the title and why not the salary too?
Right.
They said one thing to me that it's nothing bad, but it definitely put that fire in. But they pretty much said, Joe, give us 2 more years and maybe we'll consider you. So like, you know what I could accomplish in 2 years? And I was like, man, it was almost like they verbally put a ceiling over my head.
Yeah.
To where I knew I was ready for more, but it just says like, nope, we're handling the ceiling and we are not taking you in yet.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, you know what? Fair enough. And then at the time, I have a family that's also in mortgage to my uncle. And he's, for a long time, had told me, hey, Joe, just take a look. Just take a look at it. Take a peek. And I'll be honest with you, I was just scared. I never really did sales like that. So I guess you could say I didn't believe in myself enough, that I was very nervous. But then one day I was like, you know what? After they had told me that, screw it. I went into the office, kind of shadowed everybody, the conversations they were having, like, you know, how they did their day to day. And I got hooked, honestly.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I could do this. Like, will it be tough? Yeah, sure. You know, starting something from the ground up. But I made the jump, and I called my uncle right away. Like, give me all the material I need to get to get licensed. I think I got licensed in like 3-4 weeks. I was studying for like damn near close to 15, 20 hours a day. And I will say I had an amazing support staff. Not staff, but circle, I should say, because like even my people I was working at Citizens that knew how hard I try to work and all that stuff, there were times that like even on breaks, I'd have elongated breaks. I don't know if I should be saying this, but they'd cover for me to say, Joe, keep studying. We know this is what you want to do. Keep studying.
Yeah.
And I got that fully licensed in, like I said, 3-4 weeks, and that was the rearview mirror from there on. So
And here we are. So one thing that I love that you said, and I always ask that question because it is a lot of times like something a mentor said or something in one of your first careers, right? That's inspiring. What I got from that was where you were in your first career, you heard that there was a ceiling to your opportunity and you were like, absolutely not, right?
Correct.
And you knew that you had so much more time and opportunity left.
Yep.
And that's like the power about being an entrepreneur in a small business. And as a mortgage lender, you are an entrepreneur in a small business, but also as an investor, as a landlord, as a wholesaler, you've sprinkled your opportunity elsewhere, right? Back when you were, scared or maybe had a little bit of imposter syndrome or just hadn't been in that world yet prior to coming into the mortgage industry. But you never thought, you'd be sitting here now, right?
No.
With the properties you do have, the experience you have, but also the amount of people that you've helped achieve home ownership in the process. And that's really like something that I really want to dig into and talk about. You and we have closed many, many first-time home buyers together. So we're going to get into that a little bit today.
Sure.
But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about what your plans for the future are.
Growth. And I know this is a very cliche thing that probably every business person you're speaking to says, but it just, and when I say growth, it's more or less growth in myself, which will translate to business. One thing that I used to do in the very beginning, which I'm sure you did in the beginning of your real estate career, we take every meeting, we take every, thing, and then what came to my realization is not everybody respects your time as much as you do.
It's a hard lesson.
That's a hard lesson. I was bending over backwards for a lot of people, to be very honest, and I regret saying this, but sacrifice time for my family and all that stuff for, like, why did I answer that call at 11 o'clock knowing, like, let's be honest, nothing's going to be done at that time.
Right.
There was no reason.
Yep.
So I did a lot of self-reflection to go and say, I need to be better. So I have been, thank God, and I've been trying to continue to make those strides, putting the phone down at a certain time to make time for my families. Don't get me wrong. There'll be people are listening to this like, oh, but if you're not on the phone 24/7, how are you going to make this type of money? That's what they want to do.
Right.
I want to do well in life, but still not sacrifice the things like quality time with my family,
of course,
health, all that good stuff. So
because those are the important things, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
That's why we work so hard.
I'm saying, like, yeah, do the zeros in the account look great and all? But no, I want to make sure my kids have everything they need and then some. I want to make sure that they have opportunity. I want to make sure that me and my partner, my girlfriend, as of right now, that she, and I say as of right now because as you already know, we love Kristie Lee. She's wifey. But
there's gonna be a wedding.
But
someday.
But point being is, like, I want to, if you know how the phrase goes, you want to give the sun, the moon, the stars, the sky. Yeah. So don't get me wrong, work is very important. It is the vehicle that drives me to get to these goals and kind of buy my time back. That's how I see it. So when I say growth, it's me taking.
Is that a Dan Martell plug? right there.
Possibly.
Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell.
Possibly.
He's my favorite. I love him so much.
But where I guess the emphasis is just now that I've kind of identified where in my opinion, I'm going wrong, just trying to be more efficient on my time. To your point, I did take in a mentor that is a part of my company currently, does very well. He's a $100 million producer, lives in Florida, and operates almost kind of a satellite branch to where he does business in Florida, but he does a lot of other states throughout the country. And I was curious, hey, let's see how this well-oiled machine goes. And long story short, and I got to stop saying long story short, but I thought I asked him, hey, buddy, how many hours a week do you actually really work? And obviously he's built out a team and all that good stuff. He goes, 28, 30, 32.
Yeah.
I'm like, so here I am. I'm like, wow, you do $100 million a year and you're working half or a third of the time that the effort I'm putting in.
Yeah.
So then it got me really intrigued to see how.
Right.
It's our reverse engineering
right. They always say, oh, find balance. You'll hear two things. Find balance, or there is no such thing as balance, right? I agree with the no such thing as balance.
I do too.
What I do agree with is boundaries.
Correct. Limitations.
Right? Limitations.
And I actually don't even want to say limitations
time.
because that sounds like a very negative term to use, but I guess we'll stick with boundaries. But to your exact point, he said the same thing. He goes, Joe, when you start breaching certain levels of growth, you're going to be like, he calls it almost like a newborn child almost over again. So it's like, obviously, once you get to that next level, there's new challenges. So you're not going to know what to do with those new challenges until you learn.
Yeah.
So it's almost going to be a constant state of, I guess you could say, vulnerability.
Yeah.
Unknown.
Yeah.
What's the phrase? I think it's a common keynote or whatever. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think we probably hear it multiple times a day, but it's true. No growth comes from comfort zones, right? And I hear the growth right there just from when you and I got in the business around the same time, and it took us both. I hear exactly my story. It took us both time and learning. So the first couple of years we spent learning the business, taking every opportunity thrown our way, no matter how difficult it was, because that's what you need to do, right? Now we're both at the point where we're setting boundaries. We don't have to work with every client now. Now we can work with the like-minded people, the people that we connect well with, right, and want to work with us. We don't have to take every opportunity, but we've also put in enough time now to know that not every opportunity is worth it.
It's not worth your mental space, the mental headache.
Right. And I think that we have a much better understanding now, too, of if I answer this right now at 11 o'clock p.m., is it going to change answering this at 10 a.m. tomorrow, right?
The answer is usually no.
Right. And juggling that difference, especially when you work a career like us that's, we are so always on. And there are deadlines and timelines, don't get me wrong. But I think once you're experienced enough, I find personally that my clients appreciate when I set boundaries up front, and I'll let them know, hey, guess what? This weekend I'm going to be away. And they're usually really great at respecting that unless there's a deadline, some offer due or something like that. But
and I will say everyone's not bad. You know what I'm saying? It's just there's always those, I hate to say it, bad apples, I guess.
Yeah.
Just like, and I get, people can be eager.
You can call it what it is. Buyers are liars.
And here's the thing too, because let's be honest, I'm sure we were those people at one point in time because we're eager. We're ambitious. So like there were times that like, oh yeah, I got a sale. I want to make sure everything's done. And I worked till 10, 11, 12 at night, 1 in the morning to get it done. But then I thought back on it. I'm like, okay, I'm spinning my wheels here, but I'm not really gaining any extra distance because of the time frame I'm doing it. So part of me kind of sitting back to see what I'm doing wrong is just with the time that is within normal operation, how do I make it the most efficient? How do I make it more impactful?
Yeah.
So one things I started to employ, which has been a huge game changer for me, which is going to sound silly and everyone's not a fan of cold calls, but I've made cold calls a part of kind of my critical tasks, and not just any cold calls. They're directed cold calls. Okay. Because
cold calls with intent.
Because because our biggest thing is not only the people that we can gain in to help, and it's also people we've already helped.
Yes. Yeah.
We almost forget sometimes it's not about just getting the next client, the next person to help get into a house. How about the people we've already helped?
Yeah.
They're essentially free cheerleaders for us that since we've done so well with them, they're already chirping our name left and right as soon as they hear someone in a similar situation. I will say I was guilty in the beginning of trying to chase that bone that I forgot to take a step back. And I'm like, wow, I got all these people asking me questions that I've already dealt with. They already love working with me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't putting the time I should have.
Right. On the follow-ups.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I have been doing putting more of an emphasis on it. And it's been good. And I'll be honest, people's lives change for the good, for the not so good sometimes, unfortunately.
Right.
But in either one of those situations, even you can just hear it in their voice when you follow up, like as a genuine human being, like, oh, you cared about, us having a baby, or, oh, we inherited this house from my family that passed away. We don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. Just even having that call to say like, well, do you want to talk about it, get some advice on it? It almost feels like they have a weight lifted off their shoulders rather than just them guessing.
They have a trusted resource for anything, really. Yeah. And
so
if we don't know, we know who to direct them to.
Correct. So that by itself has been huge for me. And then also too, to your point, as far as picking and choosing the folks you work with, I have been very diligent on that.
Yeah.
I've promised myself that with the people that not only work with me, but work well with me, meaning that we have the same ambition, we have the same nurturing spirit towards our clients. Anyone I work with, I have zero doubt, like yourself, that if I hand over a client, they're in great hands.
Yes.
That we're going to treat them like family. We're going to treat them like great buddies. Thankfully, now I have that circle, but it took time to build.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now I try to do things to not hurt that sphere.
Right, of course.
If anything, try to invest in them more because you guys work how I do. Exactly.
And I think that's a huge point in our business of what makes us successful. One of the reasons why I enjoy working with you so much, Joe. And back to your past, present, and future, I just want to say I'm so proud of you, man. The growth and watching you grow and your family grow, and just the investments and everything that has happened since we first met, kind of way back in the beginning of our careers. So proud of you. You've had some amazing growth, and I can't wait to see what the next 10 years brings your way.
I could say the same too, because we pretty much jumped in it around the same time.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, the hurdles.
It was nuts, but it is so nice when you connect with a business partner, someone in your industry that works the way you do, because just like you said, I have sent you my friends and family because I know they're going to get the need and the attention and care that I would give them and I'd want for them. And that's really important, right? It's important to make sure that we're honing in on our relationships and with being more resilient as to not taking every opportunity that comes our way, and knowing when something is going to maybe be ugly and saying, hey, we don't need to work with this because I want to free up some time to work with those people that know, like, and trust me and connect well with me. And if those clients seek me out and know, like, and trust me, well, they're definitely going to know, like, and trust Joe too, because I know, like, and trust them. And it's just this awesome circle of being able to help our clients to the best of our ability.
Yeah, and it's true. And you want to know what it boils down to, in my opinion? When it comes to sales, period, with your product, whatever that may be, your case is the physical property, mine is the mortgage backing the property. You're not going to make everybody happy.
Right. Never.
Everyone's driven very differally.
You can't please them all, man.
No. Of course, you get those, those few that they want discount. But then that would all be well and fine, but they're shopping it out with 5 other professionals.
Right.
Now, obviously, with what we do, it's not more or less that the house we're selling or the mortgage we're selling. We're selling our service.
Yeah.
When you call me, I'll explain that same thing 50 times to you if it means helping you understand.
Right.
Because when you understand, you're not as frantic. We are always on the same page.
Yes.
And obviously things are new to you. Like, I don't expect anyone we meet to know a grain of what we do. Let's say we have a mechanic. Yeah. Do you think he knows anything about houses, buying houses?
Right.
No.
That's why they're seeking us out.
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. Just like the point I'm trying to make is when we're selling our service, it's us, that's what we're doing, and the relationship that we're nurturing, if you will, because don't get me wrong. You could In your case, they could probably find an agent that might do something for, less points. And in my case, they may find someone that may have a cheap rate or
Yeah.
lower rate that they're willing to eat commission or whatever that may look like. But who are you going to be able to call to at all hours of the day
Yeah.
within reason to get that advice, to hold that hand if you need it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, also be able to flip that switch. And now, thankfully, that we have the experience indication that you and I do now after years of, working hard, if we do got to flip that switch and not treat you like an investor, we can very easily do that.
Exactly.
Some a little more experience where we don't have to highlight certain things over and over and over again.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's where it becomes, that's more or less why, because we're giving so much of ourselves to our clients, in my opinion, that's where I feel we become very careful about who we decide to work with.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
I think now we've come to realization it's not just the mortgage, it's not just the property.
It's not.
It's our efforts, it's our knowledge, expertise, it's our, experiences over time.
Absolutely. And it is true. Like, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a tough conversation that I have to have with some clients. Oh, well, this one will do it for that. And I'm sorry, I'm not a discount broker. You're not going to get discount service with me. You're not going to get iPhone photos. I promise you're going to get top of the line everything. And I'm worth every penny.
Amen.
And unfortunately, if they don't agree, I will walk away. That's okay.
And that's
right?
100% okay.
Because my mindset has shifted from in the beginning of the game of taking every opportunity to now, okay, that one's not the right opportunity. I need to free up time for the right people.
Correct.
So to help those people. So being more selective in the process.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe, I have an important question for you.
Ooh.
What keeps you passionate about helping the first-time home buyers?
Honestly, it's usually about, I'm huge on education. It gives me a weird satisfaction. Like if you teach a kid, 2 + 2 = 4, when you hear them say the right answer, like, oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
And then starting to speak to some of these clients, it really teaching the process, and especially the ones that are very receptive to the information and they use it. One of the biggest things where I love helping first-time buyers is when they take the professional advice, and my favorite thing is when they actually use it. They practice it, they preach it, and you're almost like another proud parent, like, oh my God, they listened.
Yes. Yes.
So it's weird, and yeah, don't get me wrong, that's one of the weird, quirky satisfactions of it for me. But obviously, the big part of it is I'm a firm believer in real estate being, a wealth driver for families. Now, I will preface by saying, and not in the definition that most social medias push real estate, it is not, obviously, when done the way we're doing with first-time buyers,
Right.
It is not a get-rich-quick thing.
Right. It's a process.
It's a Warren Buffett method,
Yeah.
we'll call it.
Yeah.
Over time, you're building equity, but then you have a lot more power over your living situation.
Right.
And just it opens options. If you did want to flip the switch and become an investor later on with the equity you have, those options do present themselves. Honestly, it's the education. Yeah, like I got to say, out of everything I see, yes, the closings are great and all that stuff, and everyone's happy first time or maybe first generation, all that stuff. But I love it even more to where they're speaking my language at the end of the process already.
Yeah. And you know that they really learned something about not only the home buying process, but probably how to handle things in the future. I know personally, Joe, you and I have had conversations with clients that have purchased an investment property, and we've talked about a long game with them.
Yep.
Like, hey, in 5 or 10 years, you could do this. If this is where you're looking to go. And that's what's great about working with you too, Joe, is that you actually have personal experience as an investor, as a wholesaler, as a landlord, that not only do you have the education with the financial backing for it all, but now you have personal experiences to share with your clients. And I think that brings even more value, especially to the type of clientele we work with, which is a lot of times the first-time home buyer.
Amen.
But I couldn't agree more. I agree. I think it's a great financial backbone. And I always kind of think of it this way too, right? Real estate never loses value. There are ebbs and flows,
Sure.
But it could be generational wealth, or it could be a financial backbone.
Yeah.
Sometimes people get sick, right? A lot of my sales are situational.
Mm-hmm.
It's a season of life. Maybe they don't want to, they have to.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it's finances. Maybe there's another baby on the way, and you've outgrown your property. A lot of my transactions are situational. But the first-time home buyer, would you say, Joe, the first-time home buyer fills your real estate cup?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And
Same for me.
Yeah, especially when, and what really overflows the cup is when those first-time buyers do start becoming those investors.
Yes.
Like I have one that, actually, great example. We had one together that it took 2 years, 3 years. I don't want to name drop, but our friends that got the 2-unit in Cumberland.
Yes.
It took that one in particular, I'm very proud of, because it took 2 years of pretty much them trusting in me to understand, hey, they had a self-employed business, the whole nine. Obviously, things weren't organized how they should have been.
Yeah.
And they came to me for advice to kind of set them in the right direction, I should say. And they did just that. Those are, one of those folks that 100% listened, aligned themselves with the professionals I had advised. And they went from being first-time buyers. Now they're already talking to me about, hey, we may want to sell this to get something better, or buy, more property, or whatever it is.
And they're thinking about the next investment goal in future. And yes, I know exactly who you're talking about. And that was very interesting. And I want to side note this totally just to give Joe props, because when you're working with self-employed individuals, right? You don't have your tax forms, all that fancy stuff to go through. That's a complicated loan. You've got to weigh out a lot of different things for them, a lot of different documents, make them understand how the process is different. But what I really want to side note here, Joe, is the to-do list. I say it all the time, and I can't say it enough, because most people who think they are doomed to rent forever are not doomed. They are uneducated.
Yes.
That is merely what it comes down to.
I agree.
Homeownership is a lot more achievable than 90% of you think. You renters out there, we're talking to you. And I think it's not known enough that it is free to talk with a realtor and a mortgage advisor and to get connected with someone to start the process.
100%.
How many people do you talk to on a regular basis that say, oh, I'm not ready to buy? Right.
Too many.
Too many, right?
Yeah.
And then my next answer is, but how do you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because you don't know until you know. And until you can connect with a mortgage professional such as Joe, there's no way to know exactly where the credit's at. Maybe it's a simple fix. Maybe it's a year-long fix. We've worked with clients that it's been a year or more to get them where they need to be. And then my sister, for example, I think you had her on a 6-month to-do list.
Correct.
She did every little thing on it, and boom. She's a homeowner.
It works when you follow the plan.
It does work when you follow the plan, but let this be a note to the general public. If you think that homeownership is not achievable, give yourself the opportunity to at least have a conversation with someone like Joe or myself, someone who can connect you with someone like Joe that can be very realistic with you and literally show you where you're at.
Correct.
Maybe it's not. Maybe you need a better job. Maybe you need another job.
And sometimes that's the case.
And sometimes that is the case, but you don't know until you know, right?
Yeah, because at least those things get brought up, So
Exactly.
again, it's free. We're having a conversation you and I are having now.
Right.
But it's a little bit more in depth, because I'll be very frank in saying that public databases that are out there right now aren't the most accurate to obviously depict where you may stand from an approval standpoint, home buying standpoint, all that stuff. We can get a lot more in depth because we ask a lot more questions.
Yes.
We're not just clicking these fields and maybe this pops up. So it's always good to at least have, like anything else, like when you go into any type of job, or if there's a specific class in school you plan to sign up for, but it has a prerequisite. I can't pronounce that word, geez. Prerequisite, what are you going to do? You're probably going to prepare to accomplish that prerequisite so that you can get to that class, that job, that whatever that may be. It's the very same way this way.
That's a great example. Like, consider it like a college prereq that you have to take to get a specific degree. That degree is homeownership. Just give Joe a call. Joe, I think it's a really good time to plug you a little bit.
Sure.
If there's anyone out there looking to get more information on homeownership, anything mortgage related, real estate related in the finance area, definitely reach out to my friend Joe Travers. The website is mainstreethomeloans.com/Joseph Travers, or you can contact him at 401-808-0982. Joe, how else can we find you?
I'm also on Instagram too I believe they call it a handle.
Yes.
It's literally called It's J Trav, ITSJTRAV like Victor. And in either platform, anyway, you need to contact me. Feel free to. And like I said, it's a educational conversation. No obligations of any kind. It's more or less to see where you are now. And even if you go and tell me, hey, it's 2 or 3 years down the line, that's great. Let's set that plan now.
Yeah,
So you know
absolutely.
once you're ready in 2 or 3 years, everything's done.
Absolutely. And people like you and me, Joe, we're in this for the long game, right?
Oh yeah, I'm not going nowhere.
I mean, if we connect with you today and it's a 10-year process, we'll be here in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to help
A
you.
little more gray and white hair, but I'll be here.
We'll be here ready to help you. We'll have your file and we'll remember. But thank you so much, Joe. That was really helpful stuff.
My pleasure.
So we're going to get a little bit farther into the journey, mixing real estate with Joe. My next question to you, my friend, is can you share a memorable story with me of a first-time home buyer in Rhode Island whose journey really stuck with you? Like someone that sticks out, a situation that was just memorable. And I know it's hard because all real estate transactions for the most part are emotional,
Actually, you know
so
what?
it's tough.
You know which one that does, because in a lot of the closings that we have, don't get me wrong, family is involved.
Yeah.
And a lot of the closing situations and all that stuff. But there was one time in particular, and actually this is another one you were present for.
We've had some fun closings.
It's actually our homegirl, Lenara.
Yes.
She's actually one of my favorite closings. And the reason why I say that, it's not just because the closing, yeah, we were happy at the closing, whatever, but the community she brought out with it. Like at the closing table, next we're asking the attorneys, like, can we bring extra chairs? Can we bring extra chairs? And she has all of her friends and family in there also just supporting her goals, supporting her drive and all that stuff. And since then, I know she's an agent now, works with a lot of us now.
Yeah.
She's done strides. Shout out to Lenora.
I know. Shout out to Lenara. She's
Great
amazing.
Job, but that honestly is one of my favorite. And it was more or less because, especially her too, she's very community oriented in the family.
Yeah.
And when I saw everyone in there, he's like, yeah, I used to come in, bring, the bottle of champagne. Everyone makes it a good time. And it just made it a party, let's be honest, because the mom, the cousins, the best friends, boyfriend, everyone's there. And I'm like, wow, look at this girl go.
The culture, the community, the excitement. It's a big deal. Like homeownership's a big deal, right? And this was an investment in her first home and young too.
Young. And another thing too, and like I'm not trying to get sappy here, but also too is because the reason why I love that one so much in her particular case, her mom's a very working woman as well. And when that closing had occurred, I'm not going to say she cried, but you could tell that she had this sparkle in her eye, like my daughter did it.
Yeah. It was definitely like a huge achievement for her, like a milestone.
And it almost, from the sounds of it too, kind of gave her drive to, even though, and she's not old by any means whatsoever, but pushed her to kind of make some more real estate moves herself too.
Yeah.
But even just seeing I was a part of putting that glitter, that flash in her mom's eyes, whatever phrase you want to put on it, it was awesome.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It was awesome.
That is actually, and again, like that cup, man, that real estate cup, it's like those things, right? Like coming in at a closing. And I remember being the first time home buyer and sitting there and getting my keys, but the love and support in her community and culture. And man, she's turned out to be such an amazing agent.
Oh, she's flourished.
I am so proud of my Lenara. She was my first ever mentee and first and only one to graduate with me, actually. It's been amazing to watch her grow her career.
Great family. And
so shout out to you, Lenara. We love you, but we'll never forget your first journey in real estate. Memorable. All right, moving on. What makes the Rhode Island housing market unique, especially for the first-time buyers? And there's probably a lot of layers to this question, so let's roll with it.
A little bit, but not too much. I mean, obviously, one of the main key points that I guess is very much attractive to folks, especially first-time buyers, is one of the big common concerns is, where am I going to get the money to put, to buy this home?
Yes.
Now, that's double layered, that question, because it also goes into, yes, it's very much available, but also people don't know the true costs. When they find out what it is, like, oh, that's it?
Right.
Compared to what they thought. I've had some folks saying, oh, I need to save $50,000, $60,000 to buy this, but I'm like, Why?
No, you don't.
Yeah. You're saving too much. It's great. Save as much as you can because it helps, but it's not required. And
This is the part of the podcast where it should have a banner that says education, education, education.
Yeah, it should. But, that's definitely because of that stigma, if you will, seems to be a lot more of the more important driving factors for a lot of first-time buyers.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, where I find to be most advantageous, which that is huge, don't get me wrong, but getting a little bit further into the qualifications aspects between, what they allow for debt ratios, credit scores, and all that stuff. I will take off my hat to Ron Housing. They have a solid program.
They sure do.
They definitely made this working towards, taking in the first-time buyer in mind, to allow for those, maybe clients that have, a little bit more debt, a little bit different of a credit situation. So, that is definitely one of the true benefits too. And thankfully, we've brokered a wonderful relationship over the years of hard work with Ron Housing, us at Main Street Home Loans, to where we have been their number one participating lender for the last 5 years. Hopefully to continue that for many to come. But because that, it opened up even more opportunity for us to help more folks, because one of the big main things that kind of gave at the time Ron Housing, not a bad name, but when an agent saw it, like, housing, were the time frames, because they had to go in and out through their underwriting system and the whole nine, which their underwriting and everything's fine and all, but obviously when you have to start bouncing the file around, it just takes time. There's not really a rhyme or reason to it, but when you start passing the file around, just that adds time to the mix. And when they started allowing for delegation and all that stuff too was huge. And then once we became delegated, not necessarily had to jump through those flaming hoops, not only did it become, it was already a great product, but for us, especially within our company, it became an even greater product, because now we were able to provide all these first-time benefits, great means to qualify for people that may have a little bit lower credit score, higher debts, get some valuable down payment assistance, but not have to worry about lack on time.
Right.
To where now we have a little bit more of a competitive edge now, to where if an agent sees an approval letter at Ron Housing and they see especially Main Street, they're like,
they're not quivering anymore. Yeah.
In their head, they used to be like, oh man, I have to worry about a 45-day close. Now they're like, oh, these guys get it done 30 days, boom, done. So long answer, but that's where I see the real advantages are of housing. And for buyers, it's cliche, but it's mostly the money down that helps. But the outer layer of it as a loan officer that they may not realize because they're not doing the numbers, which is fine. Definitely the qualification parameters for housing are definitely suited for the quasi first-time buyer.
Absolutely. They're suited for that renter, just first time investing in real estate, and they really do make it a lot more achievable than a lot more people think.
And they've made strides too, like even going to those folks that maybe come out of college and have a great job, to where they could even speed this opportunity up. They've done very nice changes in how they look at student lending or student loans, to where before those very people were like, oh, I can't because I have
because they have all that student loan debt.
But if they're in non-repayment or deferment or things like that, they give us great opportunities to be able to, yes, look at those debts, but not in a way that is going to ruin the opportunity of lending.
Right. So more for the general public in layman's terms, what that means is, one, when we're using first-time home buyers, Rhode Island housing programs, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the debt-to-income back-end ratio, sometimes, say, a student loan, there's things that are more forgivable than other things.
Correct.
Right? When you're kind of looking at the wide scope of client's financial situation.
Correct.
And then Rhode Island housing, underwriting being in-house, and I can say from personal experience, one, I absolutely love working with Main Street. I just think Main Street is an awesome lender altogether. Joe, anyone I've ever worked with at Main Street, you guys are top-notch. But Rhode Island underwriting in-house means they don't have a third party. So
correct.
A lot of mortgage lenders don't have underwriting in-house, and that means it's almost like now they have to process that through another whole company, a
Correct.
third party. Whereas at Main Street, you have them right in-house, right in the same exact office as you. So you're almost cutting out a middleman and time saving, but also have a great relationship where you can get the answers quickly, move those loans through quickly.
Correct. And to be honest, that delegation, or long story short, what we're saying is the way it traditionally would go if you're not delegated is we get the file ready, get it into our underwriting, and then have to send it out to Ronhausen's underwriting.
Right.
They'd come back with any questions they have, play that back and forth game.
Yep.
When you're delegated, you've built up that rapport with housing to know, hey, we've done enough business with you. We know exactly how you guys want it.
Right.
And obviously, they're very vocal on their requirements too. So as long as you're adhering to those things, that's where we kind of were able to build on that relationship.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you're just to the way you put it, we no longer have to send it them directly. Yep. Where they essentially know we know their guidelines, how we do it, and we follow their rulings.
Yep.
And yeah, it helps us
streamlines the process.
Streamline the process.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that I love. While we're on Rhode Island housing, are there specific challenges that Rhode Islanders face when trying to buy their first home, and how can they overcome them?
So as of current, the one that I'm seeing that's becoming a little bit more relevant is jobs. And what I mean by that is obviously you get a lot of those younger, savvy individuals trying to come into the market. I want a multi, or even, and most people that you speak to, a multi is always a part of the idea.
Right.
Because they understand at bare minimum that, I'm going to live in one unit and these other however many units are going to help me offset my mortgage and help my cost of living. So it's usually always a popular conversation with a lot of people you speak with. Now, when that conversation happens, the next part that goes into it that's kind of affecting a lot of local buyers is the price points of those multis.
Right.
They are going like hotcakes. And
they are. With
the supply issue already where it's currently being, there's not as many as there normally would be. Now, 2 units, yes. 3 and 4s, those are definitely on the more scarce side of things, but those tend to be the more expensive of the properties we have on the market.
Correct. And one of the reasons, right, Joe, that the prices are getting quite inflated on multis would be rents. 100%. Rents are taking a huge factor in that. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what rents mean to the first-time home buyer if you're purchasing a 3 to 4 unit, and the specific requirements that come along with that do make it challenging for the first-time home buyer using the FHA program to acquire a 3 and 4 unit.
So the biggest one that comes to mind is a term called self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
That is the number one.
That is not a realtor's favorite 2 words.
So long story short, and I won't get into the calculations too much, but a certain percentage of the gross rents of the total property units have to cover the mortgage.
Yeah.
Now, rents have gone up, yes, but they're not going up fast enough.
Correct.
To the escalating sales price.
Escalating sale prices, yep.
And obviously that too in local legislation has caused, some disrupt as far as, what do we do about that situation? Because it's not just, fixing the rent.
Right.
Because I'll be honest with you, the rent is just a means to an end. And what I mean by that, as a landlord, don't get me wrong, we buy property as investments to not lose us money, but to make us some money. But we also know we're not going to get rich off of one house rent.
Correct.
So in the event you see a lot of rental increases, is not just because we feel like it. It's because we have to offset the cost of other things going on, the continuing tax hikes, the continuing increase to insurance policies for properties, and insurance companies leaving the state. So which kind of weeds down even less people we can shop out to.
About the lead certifications you're now required to have.
Oh, yeah.
That
that's
are
a big
costly, especially if the entire home's, covered in lead paint.
Oh, yeah.
There are several factors. And to your point, Joe, you're a savvy investor. You don't need to work with realtors. You can pretty much, acquire properties on your own for the most part with your connections. But if you were my Mr. Buyer client and say you were a conventional, you didn't need to pass self-sufficiency, I still would worry about what those market rents mean for you, Mr. Investor, to your point. Because just because you own a multi does not mean that you can cover the mortgage,
Correct.
especially at these sale prices. So when it comes to Rhode Island housing and FHA loans, they mandate that they hit a certain amount of the rent to make sure that you can still afford your home. Whereas when you're coming in as an investor or not with a Rhode Island housing loan, it's really important to know what those market rents are going to look like or what you could possibly get or how to get there, because you can put yourself underwater.
You can put yourself in a pickle because it's obviously with the experience that I've decided to take on. Yes, it helps me. It helped me personally, but obviously, like you said earlier, it helped me kind of build a little bit more of a knowledge, an all-around knowledge.
Right.
Because like where before, from a realtor standpoint or a LO standpoint, if you've never been so involved, how much can you really talk into the maintaining and operating costs of a property? Probably like the base value stuff.
Right.
You got to pay for hot water in Rhode Island or water as a Rhode Island landlord and all that good stuff. But what else? They don't talk about obviously attrition, vacancies. They don't talk about, unfortunately, in some cases, those stubborn situations to where tenants don't want to leave, destruction of property. There's a lot of other factors outside of the main control of you as a landlord that no matter what, even though it may not be your direct doing, you're responsible for it.
Right.
So even then, I have that conversation with those folks too, not to scare them, just to be very clear. These are not scary factors. This is just the cost to do business, we'll call it.
Yeah.
When you own property that just things go bump in the night, then it's gonna happen. Maybe not now, a month, 2, 6 months from now, but it's a part of the game. Like any piece of anything you have, things get old, things break, they get outdated. You need to update it. And sometimes too, you deal with folks that may not be the most reasonable. It's common. So I have those conversations with folks too, trying to go conventional financing, so that they understand that, because there are ways that outside of a loan estimate that you have to factor in costs that they won't see on a loan estimate. A lot of people get very laser focused on just a loan estimate and not factor in everything
What's my
else.
mortgage going to be? Yeah.
Did you factor in utility? Did you factor in, if you're not going to be, I have some investors obviously that want to be first-time investors. Are you going to be in the property? You need to hire a property management company.
Right.
What does that look like? All those things. So we definitely get very granular in those conversations.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I do want to touch on that I don't want us to miss, just because I want to make sure I explain this correctly, going back to why with buying 3 and 4s, FHA sometimes can be semi-problematic. With that self-sufficiency, it's not just us as a loan officer saying that if these gross rents, the percentage of this gross rents don't cover the mortgage, we're not going to finance it.
Right.
That's directly FHA saying they will not finance the property.
Correct.
The borrower could have $1 million in the bank and make $1 million a year. If that property itself does not self-suffice the mortgage, they will not
Bank's
finance
not
it.
loaning it. Yep.
So I like to be very specific in that, because people think it's the borrower's fault or the lender's fault. No. This is an FHA ruling that if that is relevant and those market rents gross do not cover the mortgage, they're not even looking at it.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to make sure I'm very specific with.
And that's the bank CYA.
Yeah.
That's
Correct.
the bank CYA, which is understandable. With the housing prices fluctuating, as we just talked about, across the country, specifically in Rhode Island, what trends are you seeing for 2025?
People are getting really caught up in social media right now. And unfortunately, as we already know, social media peddles off not the most correct information at most times.
Right.
So everyone that I speak to, especially newer people that want to buy, I hear prices are going to drop or they're going to correct or this. I'm like, guys, in some markets across the country where supply has just jumped, maybe
Florida.
Yeah, Florida, for example.
Talk about Florida, for
exactly.
instance.
Then maybe that's the case, because obviously with the influx of supply, that does, it's prone to, leveling out the pricing field, if you will. That is definitely not the case in Rhode Island, and local Rhode Island, to be very honest,
Right.
even Massachusetts.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing is going to happen. This is not only a personal opinion, but I like to try and perfect my craft a little bit. So
Yeah.
I do follow try to follow a lot of the bigger names in the game, the analytic gurus, I guess you will.
Right.
And from what I gather, and what a lot of these professionals gather too, is that we're really going to see probably towards the end of the year another 2 to 3% increase on pricing
Yeah.
for a lot of these properties across the board. And also too, because our supply is so limited with not necessarily a quick fix to it,
Right.
they recently just did a study that even if, let's say they did open the floodgates, they give all the provisions to developers and builders to go gung-ho and start building everything, right? They made a little study that pretty much said that even if in Rhode Island area, if we had these guys going for the next even 10 years of just constant building up units, housing, there still wouldn't
Still
be
not
enough supply
inventory, right? Yeah.
for our buyer demand here.
Right.
Because people forget it's not just Rhode Islanders buying in Rhode Island
Right.
now.
We have a lot of out-of-staters.
We got folks
Yeah.
coming in from Mass, because Mass is very
Yep.
expensive coming around. Connecticut. We got New York, New Jersey, people coming up from Florida.
Yep.
And we're already a small state to begin with.
We had investor clients from out of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
You and I.
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
So, and yes, and also to it, it's a good thing, but probably doesn't help that Rhode Island itself is becoming a much cleaner state. It's becoming a little bit more of a staple as far as, great places to live type deal, which is a great thing, kudos.
Joe, can we plug Real Housewives of Rhode Island on here? This is totally not a plug because I have nothing to do with Real Housewives, but I do think it's really, really freaking cool that Rhode Island's, okay, I do know one of them, that Rhode Island's getting Real Housewives. But the only reason, first of all, of course, I love the TV drama and it'll be great to see it in my own state.
Another way to put Rhode Island on the map, though.
But it's such a great way to put us on the map and just bring more to our economy and tourism and things here, particularly, and hopefully a couple more jobs.
Yeah.
So shameless plug. I'm here for it. Bring it on, Housewives.
I used to go to Illinois all the time to go visit my brother when he was in D1 college wrestling. And I'll never forget, it was the funniest thing ever. Someone asked you, hey, where are you from? And I'm like, oh, I'm from Rhode Island. Like, Long Island?
Oh, we always get Long Island.
Long Island? I'm like, no, buddy, you're way off.
Oh, man, that means like everyone else in the U.S. is going to think it's Real Housewives of Long Island. But it's really Rhode Island.
Yeah. But there's a lot. But the point being is a lot of things have happened over the years that people are recognizing it a little bit more, for what it is. So that's why I tell people all the time, like with these statistics I'm bringing up, it sounds far-fetched. Like, oh, Rhode Island's so small. Is there really that much buyer demand? We're not just accounting for just Rhode Island buyer demand.
That is correct, especially from Mass. The prices are, I mean, of course, around Boston, but even when you just go over the line, they're much more inflated. So you have all the people out of Mass. You've got New Hampshire, Vermont. I mean, all over the place, wanting to get closer to the Boston, New York area.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where they're stopping in Rhode Island and going, okay, this is the stop or the in between the two where they can get a great investment but not have to pay the Boston, New York prices.
Correct. I couldn't tell you how many times that I've dealt with buyers that they work closer to Boston, Cambridge areas, Needham, Dedham, all that good stuff. And they had zero problem buying on the outskirts of Rhode Island, just to your point, to get a reasonable price. And because of that reasonable price could have been a difference of $150,000, $200,000 in buying a house.
And that makes a big difference in your mortgage payment.
Yeah, substantial. And for that, they were okay with taking the 30-minute drive to work.
Right.
So even for reasons such as that, a lot of people take into account.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. We don't have a magic 8-ball. If we did for real estate, we would all be rich. But we can educate ourselves. Yeah. We can listen to what the predictions are. We can keep up with the news in the government and what the changes are coming. So,
and even those, as we found out in recent years, are ever changing.
Ever changing. The amount of pivots we've had alone is to the industry is a lot. Yeah. We came into a 2-3 interest rate. Things were nuts. It was a market that even 30-year experienced agents had never worked before. And so it was kind of like we all figured it out together. And now we've had to roll with the punches. And the housing prices, have been fluctuating. Are we going to see this crash? No, Joe, we've been talking about it for years. There will never be a crash. The government has just made it way too difficult for that to ever happen.
Listen, when that originally happened, that shook our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And don't get me wrong, everyone can say whatever they want about our government, but let's be honest, when that happened, they lost too. So obviously they put a lot of safeguards to make sure that things like that don't happen. So even when it comes down to people bringing up, how about with what happened in prior years? So like, you got to keep in mind there's other ulterior factors that were also happening at the same time as that original crash. Many professionals look at it now. We just don't have those same outlying factors going on currently to be concerned of that. Obviously, our government's main concern is just making sure we're paying attention to inflation and also where those levels are going, rightfully so. But definitely from my standpoint, from what I'm seeing, I don't see any concern about what happened many, many years ago. Yeah. Because there's a lot more different things at the same time going on that we just don't have going on right now.
Awesome, Joe. Thank you for your insight on that. Can you walk us through some of the standout first-time homebuyer programs available in Rhode Island? I know we've been talking about Rhode Island housing a lot, but for someone who's never heard the term Rhode Island housing or RIH before, can you walk us through a couple programs or things that they have available right now?
Okay. So with the big staple in Rhode Island is Rhode Island housing, and within that they have a few different programs. So, and when I say programs, it's mostly specific to the down payment portion of it specifically. So with Rhode Island housing, it's usually you have your Rhode Island housing first, and you have the option of a couple, or if not a few, down payment assistance vehicles. Okay. The first is literally the Rhode Island Housing Extra Assistance Loan. Yes. It is the one that is treated most like a loan. You can receive up to $20,000. That one, when I say it's treated like a loan, it does have a 15-year term and it does carry a payment, just to be clear. The second, and that one you can use starting at 620 and up credit. So it's still a very good entry point for something like that, to have access to that kind of money. Now, if you have a little bit better credit, usually above 660, you then have access to the $15,000 down payment assistance. $5,000 less, but the real caveat here that makes it very valuable is there's no interest and no monthly payment. So now in all of these items, the way you would pay them back is if you were to sell the property, refinance out of a primary residence, those type of factors.
Or sell.
Yes. Yeah, or sell. Don't know how I forgot that one. But you'd still pay it back, don't get me wrong. But again, it's just something you have to figure out later on.
Well, the best part is, though, is there any interest on those loans? The 15K.
The 15, no. So in that one, let's say you roll that one out for the whole term of the first mortgage, 30 years, which on average, people do something with their mortgage within 5 to 7 years of owning it on average. But let's say hypothetically, you wait the full 30-year term and pay off the first, and you got to pay off the second. Guess what? It's still only $15,000 after 30 years, not $15,000 plus 30 years of interest.
Yes, I think that's probably my one of my favorite things about is that it's an interest-free additional loan just to help you get that down payment to get into that first property.
And I will say too, they have one more program, which it's more directly to Rhode Island housing directly. They haven't opened this up to participating lenders like ourselves. But they have that first gen program, which to my understanding, they're allowed to go up to $25,000, I want to say.
Oh, okay.
But those qualifications are very different. You have to go directly through to Run Housing.
And they have a bunch of different parameters and requirements.
Correct. And I will say this, again, Run Housing is great, period. But for those programs that they take on themselves, they do have a little bit stricter guidelines because they're the ones essentially maintaining the risk, naturally so.
Right.
So whereas when they kind of participate with lenders like ourselves, I should say, we have those access to the larger debt ratio margins, I guess you could say. So still available, and I always highlight it sometimes because for some people it does make sense.
Yeah.
Just if no one in your family has ever owned a property and you're the first generation doing it, it's a possibility.
Yeah.
You may I wouldn't say you go through flaming hoops per se, but they have separate requirements for that
Right,
altogether because it's direct through housing.
Right. Okay. Well, thanks, Joe. That's really helpful.
No problem.
I can speak to Rhode Island Housing myself, one, helping my clients, but when I purchased about 10 years ago, I was able to use that program too.
They're an awesome program.
And I was one of those that thought I needed an 800 credit score and 50K in the bank, and then come to find out I was actually already approved.
Yeah.
The moment I filled out my mortgage, my mortgage application. So I truly believe in Rhode Island Housing. Anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out to Joe. His contact information right here, 401-808-0982. That's Joe Travers with Main Street Home Loans.
All day.
Okay. What are some of the common misconceptions people have about qualifying for these programs?
Big one's credit.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So I'll segue there. But credit, everyone had one. They're like, oh, but I don't have a 700 credit score. Well, you don't need it. As I was kind of touching on earlier with some of these programs, one of the programs you only need a minimum 620 credit score to qualify for the extra assistance.
That's
and
awesome.
for the one that even has no interest, it's only 660. So very attainable for the most part.
It's extremely attainable.
Yeah, so it's not necessary to have that 700 plus credit score to take advantage of a program like that. And I'll be honest with you, outside of that 660 credit score, if you're doing like an FHA bond, Ron Housing, there's not really any additional benefit to have a credit score higher than that, to be frankly honest. Now, if you're doing like a Ron Housing conventional bond, because they have a conventional aspect to it as well, okay, that's a different story. Then you treat it more like a conventional loan in the sense that, yes, as you start going below 700, they start hitting you with a little bit of what we call loan level pricing adjustments.
Okay.
Just pretty much just little tack-ons for having a lower score. But in those cases, you want to have a little bit higher. Still attainable, but they jab you a little bit here and there.
And that would be up to your mortgage professional, such as Joe Travers, to guide you through whether or not a conventional FHA product or a regular FHA product works better for you in your financial position. I think that is probably one of the biggest misconceptions, and I know we already spoke on Rhode Island Housing and what they offer. I still think there's too many people out there that don't know that these Rhode Island Housing extra assistance programs exist. But it's our job to make sure everyone knows. Right?
Exactly.
And then the credit and the down payment. Those are two huge misconceptions I find all the time. Again, they're going to hear it 100 times in this podcast. The to-do list. Just contact us. We're going to help you.
And even touching on the credit thing you're saying in general, not even just with housing, that one drives me up a wall. Not in a bad way, but it's just like some clients are like, oh, figure it out, pay this. I'm like, oh, time out. Let's line you up with one of our credit professionals because sometimes you might be doing a little bit more harm than you are good.
Yes.
Or you may not need to pay as much as you think to get where you need to get.
Yeah.
So let's involve one of our local professionals so that we can go ahead and see if that's the case. And I couldn't tell you how many times to where some clients go have to pay down $10,000 of debt.
Right. I'm going to pay off my credit cards. And then you're like,
pay off my car. Like, whoa.
Don't pay anything off.
Yeah, no, I was like, relax, time out. But then they talk to our credit professionals and all that good stuff and like, oh, I just got to take this balance down to here, this balance down to there, and not pay $10,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be as simple as just moving some things
Obviously,
around and getting some quick points.
Each case by case, but like I said, it all circles back to just getting educated. If you don't know, don't try to guess.
Right.
Talk to us.
Right.
Even if it's credit, financial planning, whatever, we have the professionals the licensed professionals to line you up with to get those answers. So not only will you be getting the info to get qualified as a buyer, if there's other avenues, whether it be budgeting, planning, credit, and income, which all go into the mortgage process anyways, we have our network to make sure you get those professional answers and kind of be the light in the tunnel, if you will.
Absolutely. How does Rhode Island Housing first-time home buyer programs work? I know we did kind of go over what they offer, and then you did talk a little bit about the qualifications. Typically, what would you say to the renter that's in doom right now, thinking that they can never buy?
One thing I will say, there's two aspects to the qualification that we have a lot of control in. credit and savings. I could very easily, link you up with my credit person, get you in a game plan, good. Or I could put you in a savings plan to get to that number we need to be on top of getting extra assistance, good.
Right.
The income's the one that we never have control on. We
Correct.
can advise on best practices, on what you should do. But I guess to answer your question, it'd be more like, how would you start, or what would you have to factor in? What I would say is, especially if you want to take advantage of the Run Housing First-Time Buyer Extra Assistance monies, obviously at bare minimum, you got to have the 620 credit score.
Right.
As far as savings is concerned, in unison with utilizing that program, obviously this is very depending on price point, but I recently just helped someone out to where they got the $20,000 with the state, and the house, I believe they're buying for 2-unit, buying it for $515,000, and after the $20,000, hits the closing costs, I think she's coming to the table with I believe it's $5,000 to $7,000.
Oh, that's amazing.
After the fact. So, obviously, I will say this. Even though that may be a smaller goal to save up towards, keep in mind, home ownership, I don't care if it's a new construction, things go bump. So I always tell people, yes, you could be into a property for something as little as that,
right?
But you always prepare for it. Think about it. You're going to want to furnish your living. You're going to want to maybe put your style on it, paint, decorate, whatever. It all costs money.
Yep.
And also too, just having a little bit of a reserve fund, just again, things go. You might have to change a toilet, some light bulbs.
The water tank might go.
Mine blew up.
I've done 2 now in the same house.
A couple of months ago, one of my properties, mine went kaboom, and I mean kaboom.
Yeah, and it's not fun when you have inches of water in the basement, especially in a finished basement.
Oh, the water bill was the worst. Because it just kept spewing. I'm like, oh no. But so with that being said, those 2 aspects, very manageable, entry level price points. So even if, and people keep in mind too, don't be shy to ask for help. And what I mean by that, in a lot of cases, and this kind of ties into both the savings aspect and the income aspect. Okay, I come into a lot of clients that their current job may not be enough to qualify for what they want.
Right.
But there's also been countless times to where they're already speaking to family about living together as a part of the home purchase, or they already live together, or something along those lines. Why not? Let's talk to the other person too, and maybe bring them in as a co-borrower, add their income as long as debts and credit are within reason, and try to qualify that, because naturally the more income we can show on a file, the greater chances you have for approval. Yeah. And I know a lot of folks are saying, well, I want to do it by myself. Heard. Got it. And I get it. I do. But at the same time too, we have those conversations, be a little bit realistic. Okay, fine. If you want to do it by yourself, I need you to get a job that pays you this much. Right. And in some cases, it could be a big number. Is it really realistic to ask somebody that's making $50,000 to make $80,000 in a year? If they can, great, awesome. I'm so happy for you. But really, will it? Because in a lot of places too, unfortunately, people don't realize when you work for companies, they pay attention to their pay increases. Right. So if you're already an employee and you ask for a raise, they may give you one, but by a certain percentage based on how they structure hiring. Yeah. So it may not be, they're not going to give you a $30,000 raise. That's the point I'm trying to make. Right. So because of that, and I'm bringing this up because this becomes a little bit of a pain point for some clients. Yeah. Don't be shy to ask for help. Right. And also down to the money part of it. Okay, fine. Let's say you have $10,000. You would like 5 more, or you need 5 more to close the deal. Why not ask mom, dad, auntie, uncle, someone you're close with, family member, to see if maybe a gift is possible to make it happen.
Gift funds, yeah.
Gift funds to kind of bring you to the finish line. And I tell people all the time, if you ask, you don't receive. And the worst they'll tell you is no, which is perfectly fine.
That's my favorite line, Joe.
Yeah.
If you don't ask, the answer is always a no.
Exactly. Exactly. And that goes the same. So between getting the funds for closing, which is fairly it sounds crazy, but in most age groups of first-time buyers, I was reading a statistic to where between the ages of 21 and 29, about 35% receive gift funds and from parents. And then even going forward from like 30 to 45, I believe the gauge was, it was still right around 25%.
And that too, if you think about the grand scheme of a $500K home and what you're going to save in just a couple years on your rent, because it's 100% interest on your rent, right, towards someone else's investment, you weigh those two out. That 5K quickly outweighs that this huge opportunity is there. And a lot of times there are family members around that are willing to help.
Yeah, and obviously, we do you necessarily bank on that? No, I understand that because, everyone has their own lives. I do get that. But again, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Of course.
Especially if this is an important enough situation for you and your family. Why not turn over all those rocks and explore those questions to see if there is a way? Because who knows? I've had families to where at first they're like, no, but then as soon as they hear like, wait, so if I give them this, they can get their first house? Mm-hmm. And maybe they never own a house that the parents are renting to or whatever.
Right.
And they just realization that it's possible. And they're like, oh, yeah, we could do that. But again, it goes back to what you said in the very beginning. You only know what you know.
Right. You only know what you know. So one, education, and two, if you don't ask the answers.
We're going to keep probably beating that like a dead horse.
Keep beating it up until you guys hear it. How can buyers best prepare to take full advantage of these programs financially and emotionally?
Financially is easy. And what I say by that is I will tell you right now, housing has definitely, right now in this current rate market, has been quite competitive.
Yeah.
I will say, especially in the FHA space, very competitive. So, and what I mean by that, they have had a lot of the lower interest rates available to first-time buyers, which naturally, lower rate tends to be lower monthly costs. And also, secondly, from a financial standpoint, the down payment, just that's $15,000 to $20,000 you don't have to currently pull out of your pocket right now for rainy day fund or whatever you call it. From an emotional standpoint, that's not more so the product. That's more so the professional you align with.
Right.
And the reason why I say that, I'll say it again, damn it, the education your professional provides you.
Yes.
Because if you have a professional that walks you through A to Z to give you full understanding of what to expect, what to anticipate, and proper expectations at that.
Right.
Not just saying like, hey, it's going to be, cotton candy and rainbows.
Right.
Set the true expectations. And even those expectations can change from property to property because each one has differing criteria. But from an emotional standpoint, I've seen many a times all my clients that I'm very thankful for, I'm knocking on the table here, the reason why they're so calm is we've taken the time to dissect everything. Guys, before we even put an offer on the house, this is what we're going to do. At these price points, this is what the ballpark mortgage is considering these estimate factors. Here's the estimate cash to close figure. Considering these estimated factors that are possibly subject to change within reason, because obviously you do this enough and you have a good idea of the ballpark of where things fall,
right?
Give or take. But I found that even just doing something as simple as that, to where before a client even walks into a house and they already know the financials behind it, they're already the world more confident.
Absolutely.
They're pretty much just going in there to check off the space meets their needs.
Right, to check their boxes off and see if
and then going with
works.
the agent to make sure it's not anything underlying that may be of concern.
Structural,
at that point in
mechanical,
time, they're all in.
Yeah.
So from an emotional standpoint, the education helps most all. Then I've taken on clients from other situations that haven't had that communication.
Yeah, me too. Unfortunately, I've heard tons of those stories where like, wow, well, you just taught me more in 5 minutes than 6 months of working with this person.
And you kind of feel bad because they come to you all frantic, and it's not, you have to
with a negative experience in real estate on top of it.
Yeah, most people, they have the problem of kind of taking that personally, chip off their shoulders. Like, no, take a step back. Understand that this person's coming to you for help because they tried doing that and someone unfortunately did them wrong.
Yeah.
So once you kind of take a step back, and even though they may be infuriated, angry, frustrated, even still, if you take the time to kind of break down that barrier and wall to understand, like, listen, I understand you had a situation. Here's how it should be handled, and here's how it will be handled going forward.
Yep. And here's the pros, but also here's the cons. And
correct.
Again, like bringing it back to education.
And that's the thing too, to build comfortability emotionally with clients too. You can't just always talk about the goods.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because there can be some cons.
Absolutely.
You know, in certain situations, and it takes the person that's willing to at least have that conversation to build that level of trust to understand, like, I got your back no matter what.
Yep.
I'm going to also let you know how great this may be, but if there are stuff that's popping up that may not be in your best interest, guess what? It's my duty as your professional to watch your back.
Yep. And to educate you and guide you through suggestions so you can make the best financial decision.
Correct. And to be honest, everyone has a very wrong inclination. And when you deal with people like you and I, that we're the shot callers.
Yeah.
We're not.
We're not.
We're not. Like, borrower A, borrower B, Jane and John Doe, you are the bosses.
Yep.
My job is to give you all the pieces to the puzzle so you can
put it together
and all good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll
Make
give
it
you
all
a
pretty.
few different variations, and you tell me which one best works for you.
Yep. Absolutely. So I think it's safe to say our careers are people driven. And what I find really cool about real estate is no 2 days are ever the same.
No.
I came from 17 years of corporate America, sitting behind a desk for like 40, 50 hours a week. So the monotony was something that my personality can't handle very well.
Oh, no.
And being an outgoing person, I think, helps in our profession. But with the last question I asked you, like financially and emotionally, I think it's really important for people to know we can sit here all day and educate, and you can drop the financial bombs here and there. But they forget the emotions that we deal with, and like these are people's lives, and more than likely the biggest financial investment of their lives. And this kind of goes back to like, you know, setting those boundaries and attracting the people that want to work with us and know, like, and trust us, because we've already set that precedent right there, where when things get emotional or might not go in the client's most favorable way, that can easily be landed back on us, right? And we can be the blame. But with how you and I work, we're so upfront with everything and educating with the good and the bad. I can go to my client and say, I got bad news. And I can drop that bad news, and it's perceived so much better because I had prepared them that there are also negative things that are going to happen, and this can be very emotional. The home buying side is usually fun emotional for me, right? It's like, yay!
No, I agree.
You know, yay, I'm buying a home. My end, where I deal with like listings and stuff, it gets a lot deeper. But people is probably, if you were to ask me why I got into real estate, I would just answer people. Like, that's my first answer. I do believe that I have a purpose here, and that is to connect and help others. And I find that I connect with like-minded people, right, Joe? So I find you and I to be people-oriented.
100%. Because, I mean, it's so easy to kind of stand behind what we do.
Yeah.
Like, yes, don't get me wrong. We market, we do sales, all that good stuff. But like, imagine, this is not a shout out to you car folks out there, so I apologize in advance. But like, if you're pushing off a car, from a financial standpoint, you already know, unless it's for work purposes, that's an instant liability.
Right.
So does that person really need that $100,000 two-door when they're a family of four and all that stuff? They would like to have in their garage. Sure, I'm all for it. I'm all cool for having the fun toy and all that stuff. But do they really need it?
Right.
You know, what justifications are you truly giving yourself to say, yeah, they need this, so they gotta buy this? Our product or service, I should say, housing, is so easy to stand by because we provide stability. We provide housing structure. We provide hopefully long-term habits, healthy habits, financial habits,
financial stability, generational wealth, you name it.
And
that's a great way to put it, Joe. I never really thought of it that way. But to your point too, I find that most small business owners and most entrepreneurs like us, you have to have a passion behind it, right? Right? Like there has to be something behind it that makes you dive into it so much and make that your livelihood.
Yeah.
For sure. I've always said, like, I'm the least salesy, like, real estate salesperson you'll ever meet. I just work off connection and helping people. And I know you do too. I've never found anything about you to be salesy ever.
It's usually not. I mean, the only reason why I even bring it up that it is because it just, I mean, that's the sheer fact of it. It is, you know.
It is. We're buying and selling real estate. But I think, to your point, it's because it's something we truly believe in, and we've got facts and know that you cannot go wrong with owning real estate.
And it has been the case for many years before us.
But well before us.
So, I mean, it's just one of those things where, like, someone can go and say, and this is not me giving any stock advice of any kind, but, like, obviously the common knowledge to any Joe Schmo, what do you know about the S&P 500?
Right.
Not much, other than it's probably gone up, a couple % year over year for the last however many years.
Anything about any stocks.
So, but the point I'm trying to make is, that's just what it is. I hate to say that it's sales, but you know we are. But again, going back to what I was saying, just kind of knowing that, to have that purpose, that passion, to where we know that it's providing something of the utmost benefit.
Yeah.
That's
bringing
where
value.
It's very easy to not sound salesy.
Right.
Because realistically, you're not pushing the sale. You're pushing their need.
Right.
You know, and not even, I hate to say even pushing, but you're,
I would say, facilitating an opportunity.
Good word. Yes.
Right? Yeah.
I like that better. You're facilitating what they're expressing to you are their family needs.
Right. The wants and needs, and then we just merely help facilitate it.
Exactly.
Educate, help you make the best decisions, guide your best interests throughout the whole process.
So that's why, in my opinion, it just makes it easier to talk about what we do.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't be a car salesman. I couldn't sell. I tried shoe sales before when I was younger, and why? But like some people tell me, why should I get this shoe? I'm like,
we're not downing the car sales.
Yeah, we're not downing anybody. You guys make your money.
I give it to you because that's real sales.
Yes, that's real sales.
That's real sales right
That's ballsy right there. Like, some people, I remember, I'll never forget, there was one time, I think when I was younger, I was working at Finish Line. And someone really asked me, why should I get this shoe? I'm like, I sat there for a minute. I'm like, you know what? That's a really good answer.
You know what? I'm puzzled on that because it's the newest release, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
my inner salesman definitely failed that day.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's good.
Yeah.
You got me. You got me.
You gotta think about this. May not be a passion for me.
Ask me about real estate. You better get ready for an earful.
Right? What are 3 things every first-time home buyer should do before they even start house hunting?
Definitely. Understand it's commonality. Speak to an agent, which I get it, because just think about our business models. You know, realtors are business to client and loan officers are business to business.
Correct. So if you connect with a mortgage lender first, he's more than likely going to ask you if you have a realtor and then recommend a few that he works very well with, and then vice versa with a realtor. The realtor can only help you so much.
Correct.
We need the finance guy like Joe Travers over at Main Street to really work with you on getting you approved. And we always have solid contacts, like you said, that circle that we've built throughout the years. If we don't know the answers, we're going to get them.
We'll find them. So yeah, I mean, as far as the 3 things concerned, which I think is of the utmost importance, and it's not just for the buyer, but also just out of respect for the professionals, realtors too.
Right.
You guys need things to do your job.
Correct.
The approval letters, you need to know that whatever price range you're looking at are actually feasible for said client.
Right.
So definitely number 1, speak to a loan officer. And 9 out of 10 times, 99% of the time, they'll probably already have everything you'll need. Right. Now, second thing I would suggest to do is to start while talking to your LO, and you'll have preliminary conversations as far as what you think you want. I find it really good to start really thinking about what your family needs are. People will just say, I want a house. Okay, let's dissect that a little bit more. When you say house, how big of a house? How many rooms?
Right.
Do you need a big backyard? Do you need a small backyard? Do you care to have a backyard?
Right. Do you have a dog?
Do you have a dog? Do you want to do laundry? Do you want to have a condo association do that for you? So I guess after talking to an LO while they're working on everything for you, is the second thing would be really try to understand yourself what you're looking for and why.
Yep.
You know, is this really what you want for your family? Not just because you hear it on social media.
Right.
Because I hear too many people nowadays being too driven by social media.
Yes, I agree.
For the wrong reasons. And then thirdly and lastly, what I would say is be diligent. And what I mean by that is we as professionals can only work as fast as you permit us to, or allow us to, I should say. So the easiest way for you to get educated, for you to get the information you need to even make the decision whether it's a good or bad choice for yourself at the moment, you need to get that info in front of you. And the only way we can get that info in front of you is if you're communicate with us, get us the documentation we need, fill out the application so we can have those discussions.
Right.
A lot of people, I don't know if it's they get cold feet or they're busy, but they push off collecting those items and then wonder why they're not getting any answers.
Right. Yeah.
So those would definitely be my top three. Speak to an LO to start pretty much getting your whole financial snapshot put together.
And that's, even though I'm the realtor, that is always my number one recommendation. Just my cousin a couple weeks ago said, Kristie, I think we're ready to buy. How do we start? I said, mortgage lender.
Yep.
Then me.
Yep.
Start with that. Because your realtor also needs to know where you're at.
Correct.
You can want a $600K house, but you may not qualify for that.
Correct.
And when I connect with you and your lender, after running a pre-approval and you're coming in at 300, it's now my job to discuss and educate you on what that looks like.
Correct.
And what you now qualify for. And again, that just all comes down to education, and it comes down to us working as a team. Mm-hmm. So you'd say number one is loan officer. I agree with you 100%.
Two would be kind of fine tuning your wants and needs, expectations of what you need out of a house.
That's a big one too.
Because again, it's very important. You need to have a full understanding. Do you have kids? Like you said, dog. Like there's a lot of factors that go into it. And then lastly is just when you've done those first two things, the last thing is being diligent.
Yeah.
You know, give the same effort that you want back.
Right. Exactly.
You want an L to bend over backwards or a realtor to bend over backwards? Help us out here. Work with us.
And this is like, kind of when I'm setting up people who want to get approved too, this is what I tell them when I'm connecting them. They'll get this a pre-approval or non-approval done as fast as you get them the documents. And that's so true. I think, Joe, from my personal professional experience, it's the headache of pulling this document offline here, and then they forget the passwords for the logins, and some of them have to go back to HR, and it's really like, how bad do you want it? Like, do you want to own a house? Do you want to find out how and when you'll qualify? Well, you got to do a little bit of deep diving for us. I'd be remiss
in saying that it's not 100%, done for you.
Right.
Because
it could be a pain in the butt to get all those docs.
Because from a legal standpoint, I can't just pull your income docs or your bank statements. That's what people don't get.
Nor is he going to use Credit Karma at any point to find your credit score.
Absolutely
just want to throw that out
there. Absolutely not. But also, too, that boils down to a part of being diligent. Just communicate it. If certain things are becoming a little bit difficult to grab, we've got ways to get the information we need within reason and with permission.
Yep.
Like people don't I've had a couple of situations to where people couldn't find certain documentation from to account for something like overtime.
Right.
Or like extra additional pays, right? And they couldn't find some year-end pay stubs because they did some transitioning between companies.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yep.
They communicated that with me like, hey, listen, if you sign this form, pretty much give me permission, we can reach out to said companies you work for to give us what's called a verification of employment, and they'll highlight for us what they get in base, overtime, bonus, blah, blah, blah.
We've done that on quite a few clients, actually. You've gotten permission and you were able to step right in for them, get all the docs needed, and help out. And
even now it's becoming, especially with technology, it's becoming even more advantageous to let us know, because now we even have certain things, like we utilize a system called Finicity. And what that is as soon as you go on the application, they gives you the option to put in your online passwords for your online banking.
Yeah.
We don't got to get pay stubs from you no more.
Right.
We can pull all the documentation we need to get directly from the site, so we don't have to bug you for that no more.
Yep.
And in some cases too, depending on how the client wants to do it, we have another system too that if you give permission for it to look into it, it's called Argyle. It automatically tries to pull your income information from the company directly. We tried, as time goes, we do try to still continue the innovation to make it as less taxing to the prospective
more systems, databases, all of it just helps.
Obviously
us
with the
all
proper
grow and make
permissions.
things- yes, with the proper permissions, of course. I think we've kind of spoke about this a tiny bit, but in like real layman's terms to the doomed renter, can you break down the mortgage approval process in simple terms for someone who's completely new to this? We know one is contact the mortgage lender.
So if I had to give you a kind of what to do if you feel like you're a doomed renter, just to even see what your options look like. A, contact it. If you don't know an LO and you know the agent, I'm sure the agent may have a recommendation, but if you can, make your way over to the LO first. Normally, they're going to want to have you fill out an application right away.
Yep.
On average, especially when I myself, I use online applications. Takes you 10, 15 minutes to fill out.
Right.
So LO, application, gather documents, and as soon as those three things have been done and you've given permissions throughout the application to pull credit, all that good stuff, usually, depending on the LO, I usually have very quick turnaround times.
Yes.
For example, if I have everything, I'm not even sure what time it is yet, but if you gave me everything now, I could probably have an answer for you by end of day.
Right.
So it is fairly quick as long as we have everything we need.
As long as all the documents are in hand.
Not to talk too much into or kind of make it drawn out, but yeah, so for those renters out there, you need to get informed. Plain and simple that. So just talk to an LO.
Get informed, yeah.
Yeah. Talk to an LO, fill out the application real quick, get the documents together, and even if it is a scenario after the LO reviews the file itself and there are what I like to call areas of improvement, a lot of those documentations you've already collected to begin with last a long time.
Right.
So for example, like let's say we're going to be in June shortly. You gave me 2024 W-2. Though that W-2 is good until they administer you another one at the end of the year.
Yep.
So a lot of those tax documents, they're good. Same thing with your tax returns.
Yeah.
I won't need them updated until you file new ones the following year.
Right.
The only ones that tend to be brushing up, if you will, is the pay stubs and in some cases the bank statements, depending on the situation, which again, we have some systems to hopefully offset that tediousness.
Yeah.
But that's what I would say. And that'd be the best way. And then from there, the most value of it is not just knowing where you currently at. It's getting the advice to properly set a SMART goal. And as everyone knows what the SMART goal, you have to make it actionable. You got to make it within reason, a reasonable time frame, all that good stuff. You want to make
realistic.
Make it realistic. Yeah. Speaking to someone like me, we can create that for you.
Yeah.
And also follow it through with a realistic time frame. It's not one thing just to say, yeah, if we do this thing, A, B, and C, we're going to get approved. Okay, if we do A, B, and C, we'll get approved, but how long will it take for us to do that? Again, all about setting proper expectations.
Yep.
So once you get that SMART goal, the ball is completely in your court. If there are areas of opportunity to where, like any plan, if you follow it, it works. If you don't, no sauce.
Right. Good stuff, Joe. All right, here's a good one.
Ooh.
In your experience, what's the biggest mistake first-time home buyers make, and how can they avoid it?
That is a good one.
That's a good one, right?
That is a good one.
Because there's a few. Like,
There's
don't buy a car
there's a few.
while you're trying to get approved for a house.
Yeah, so obviously from the simple standard of what not to do, obviously when you're trying to get a house or get approved, don't open new credit cards, don't finance a car, don't co-sign for anybody for any of those things either. To the greater public, when you co-sign on a car, credit card, whatever, that is your debt also.
That is
and
your
more
debt
specifically,
now.
someone else's house. Don't do that. Obviously, make sure you're making all your payments on time to have good payment history so you don't ruin your credit. And yeah, please don't do any of that. Those are usually the upfront mistakes that, thankfully, when you speak to us, we can address upfront.
Yes.
Now, obviously, if you do it mid-transaction, different story.
Right. That's going to be a problem.
One of the biggest mistakes that I see, though, is that some clients don't, and this may be controversial here, but, you know, then some agents may not like that I say this, but if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you don't have to worry.
Right.
But I'm a firm believer in interviewing your agent.
Yeah.
You know, because I've unfortunately dealt with, there's been plenty of clients that I've given you that, you know, they were working with people that,
Yes.
not to sound rude, probably shouldn't be doing what they're doing, you know,
Right.
being an agent altogether, and just not giving the cadence that the clients deserve. So a proper person tell all the time, you can sniff that out.
Right.
You know, if a person just sounds like a sleazy salesman, more than likely you are not in their best interest. The sale
Go
is.
with your gut after the first convo.
Correct.
If your gut does not say I could trust this person and what they have to educate me, then you gotta go interview someone
and
else.
it's simple questions too. And I tell people all the time, it's just like you and I working together.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just working with you because you're a great agent, or you're not just working with me because I'm a great loan officer. We like each other as friends. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We find ourselves talking to each other every day, every other day as you start doing more and more in business. So
Right.
guess what? You better hope you like that person you're doing business with.
Right.
Same goes for clients though.
Exactly.
I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen clients that have had, you know, like, I don't really care for this realtor, or they don't rub me the right way. Then why are you working with them?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of the general public too, I don't know that they know a lot of times that there is a choice, that you can interview as many realtors as you want.
Yeah.
Now, I personally haven't run into many situations where I was competing for, say, a listing
But
or
that's
for a
my
client.
point, though. People like you and the way you do business wouldn't have to.
Right, because I'm an attraction type of agent
you're
rather than
genuine.
rather than a cold call. Let me take any
Correct.
rope of business that comes my way.
Correct.
Type of thing.
And again, it all boils down to, I don't care who you are, people can sniff out genuine intent.
Yep.
It does.
100%. I have a client right now, actually a buyer client, that he last year ran into a really bad situation with a realtor. Unfortunately, not all realtors actually have your best interest. And he worked for a past client of mine. The client gave him my number and said, call this agent just for advice. This is my agent. She's great. Gave him advice. Just as much as I could without, stepping out of my own realm of professionalism. But he ended up calling me back 9 months later to work with him. And it was like, it's those things, right? Like those connections. And we love to educate. And I think that helps give people a even bigger trust factor with us too.
Yeah.
That we want to tell you, we don't just want to tell you the good, we're going to tell you the bad too.
Yeah.
People appreciate that right off the bat.
And it's also, people got to gauge what they want too. Like, if you're the type of person that when you buy a house, you're going to want to be handheld, which there's nothing wrong with that, to be very upfront. Try to look for that aspect in an agent. Look for that caring, nurturing, environment that an agent could possibly provide to you. So I guess when it comes down to that, that's one of the more, I'll be honest with you, more costly mistakes that I've seen with some clients. And the reason why I say that, because sometimes not working with the right person can cost you some significant money. I had a couple of scenarios to where, unfortunately, said person wasn't paying attention and lost clients thousands of dollars in deposit money.
That actually happened to someone I'm working with, and he wasn't educated through the inspection period, went past the inspection contingency period, wanted to back out. The agents held him to commission. It went to court. Unfortunately, because of agreements, they had to get paid. But man, this poor client sitting there going, no one told me that I had a right to bring someone in, right? So they weren't educated, but unfortunately are now out thousands of dollars. So that's a really, really important, I think, topic and thing to bring up. Like if your gut's getting the heebie-jeebies, man, and you're not 100% comfortable, definitely do not work with that person.
Yeah. And it's like I said, and I tell people all the time, and the same goes for me too. Same thing for your LO. But here's the rationale behind of what I'm saying. If you're dealing with somebody that may not be the best professional, more than likely they're going to refer you to somebody who's equally not the best professional.
Probably.
More than likely, because their goals are aligned the same.
Right. The like-minded people who stick with the like-minded
Correct.
people. Hey, listen, if you're Mr. Client who's selling your house and you just want a bulldog and top dollar, there are agents out there for
100%.
you. But if you're the first-time home buyer that doesn't know anything about anything and wants the right type of people, guidance, and education, Joe and I are your people.
Amen.
We're your people right here. Call us today.
Who do you?
The Dream Team.
The Dream Team, that's right. No, but I think that is so important. I really do. Like, obviously, yes, the the basics of with the not getting new cars, credit cards, all that stuff is very important as well. But
and just so the general public knows, these have all happened to Joe during a loan process. You think it might be obvious, but I guess it's not. So I think it's maybe one of the first things that comes out of Joe's mouth when he starts the pre-approval process. But these things happen, and it is important to. And I run into potential buyers that'll go, "Oh, I got to pay all my credit cards," and the first thing I'm like, No, because what a lot of people don't understand too, and I'll leave this to the credit professionals and the finance professionals, but being around a little bit, I do know this. The bank that's lending you money, they want to see debt too. They do not want you to have zero debt. They want to see that you can carry debt and you can pay on time and you can keep good standing with these accounts. So I think a lot of misconception with a lot of people is let me pay off everything. Oh, I got to pay this. No. That's where, Joe and the credit people
and all that good stuff,
are going to go. Like, they don't realize it's actually worse to pay off a credit card than to get it to a certain
you're going to
balance.
love this. And in some cases, not only do they pay it off, but they close it too.
10 times worse. The amount of points doing this is just insane. But credit cards are also a great way to increase your points quickly.
Yes.
I've seen, Joe, you do to-do lists on many of our clients working with credit cards and payments and gotten their point like skyrocketed. So credit cards aren't the devil. We just need to know how to use them properly.
Treat them with respect.
Treat them with respect. What is your vision for the future of home ownership in Rhode Island?
My vision. So obviously, attainability, that's really where I would like things to start getting towards, because the way things are going now, and I even hate to say this, it is tough for the first time buyer. I'm not shying away from that at all. Certain things on a very macro level need to occur before that does happen.
Right.
Obviously, anytime we talk about changes such as these, that make real impact to bring on more affordability, it's got to be going through, our government legislature, which even when it does, it takes years to implement. And then from there, how long does it take to bear those fruits of those labors? So I guess my future envision in home ownership from a standpoint, I'm just praying for more affordability.
Yeah.
And if not, and there's a few ways I do see that happening though. I'm not saying it as a doom and gloom that people aren't going to be able to hold together. There are things that are happening that we just do have to be patient on and be a little bit more supportive on. Like with there going to be more business investment into the United States. Again, opens the floodgates for more jobs. And again, when people are able to make more, they qualify for more.
Right.
And even with that too, if they start working on ways to, lower construction costs, material costs, all these things that have essentially put a stop to a lot of developers and builders doing their thing to build more housing, it will start to alleviate that supply factor.
Right.
But again, we're talking years down the line, which is fine. That's where, I guess affordability would be my vision and hope of the future. And I will say that a lot of housing authorities we work with are very much aware of our climate and environment, and they too are doing very well to try and combat it as well.
Right.
Rhode Island Housing being one of them.
Yeah.
Even as because those extra assistance monies, they used to be smaller dollar amounts.
Yeah.
So with them seeing issues as far as affordability and, people being able to make those the down payment for the properties, they started increasing those to try to
accommodate
and alleviate that stress. So obviously there's more to come. I know with companies like the housing authorities and such, especially around housing, because we deal very directly with a lot of management and all that stuff. Awesome group of people, and definitely they try everything to make it even more possible.
They try to be very innovative with that first gen program, trying to provide a lot of different opportunities.
Yeah, so as things go, that's where I see the changes to occur. They're probably going to step up their game a little bit more to see, okay, fine, if organically these problems aren't going to solve themselves for some time. What can we do to alleviate it a little bit? So, yeah, that'd be my future vision, and I'd hope and pray, because naturally, if we can do that, let's be honest, we put more people into homes and give that little slice of the American dream,
Right.
Which obviously changes for everybody, but that's usually a big one for folks. So
It is.
that'd be the hope and goal.
Oh, that was so good, Joe.
Oh, thanks.
I wish the same, and peace in all of the world.
That's a plus too.
That's a good
That's
too.
a good one too.
No, but you see it, I see it, especially on the realtor end. I probably get, 5 messages a week for renters just trying to find places to rent. Rents have, kind of been just affordability, but also the supply, right? And Rhode Island has been getting more inventive and creative as a state.
ADUs.
We just, passed the whole thing on the ADU, adaptable use, which is amazing. Basically, we can take an existing structure now and legally turn it into some type of in-law or what they call an ADU type of situation. So I think that's something that is probably going to benefit towards real estate in Rhode Island specifically in the future. But I think you nailed it, Joe, with your vision for the future of home ownership. Unfortunately, there's a lot of things that we cannot control. The only thing we can control is our due diligence, keeping ourselves educated, up with the times, pivoting with every turn, and just having that best interest for every client's different situation.
And I will say, too, even with that, again, it's not doom and gloom, with that vision. It's definitely a hope and goal, but I still tell people all the time, and I have been preaching this for the last couple of years, and you've heard it probably more times than you want to admit, but it's still, I don't care what nobody says, it's always a great time to buy real estate.
Always.
Because the same happens every year. People that buy now and, the people that waited years, those people that waited the years wish they bought when we had told them to originally.
Oh, yeah. We've got a few of those.
Yeah. Like we had a meeting. They were like, oh, people who are complaining about 2025 prices are going to wish they bought in 2025 and 2028.
Yeah. I actually have a few that were like, man, I wish back a couple years ago I didn't give up, or, because, unfortunately, we're never going to see 2s and 3s again. Are we going to continue to get creative and help people the best we can? 100%. That's our main goal, right?
Yeah. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll kind of myth bust this, but
I love me a good
yeah. But even talking about 2% and 3% rates, people got to understand the rate itself sounds amazing, but people got to understand how it gets there.
Right.
For us to get there, that means our economy is not doing hot.
Yeah, so I think you'll agree, Joe, a lot of what we're seeing now is because of where we were in the 2s and 3s in COVID.
Correct.
And our economy is feeling it. We're feeling it.
Yeah, at one point in time, we were paying $4 or $5 for gas, and then God for a loaf of bread and eggs.
Yeah.
How much were you paying?
$10 for eggs.
Oh my God.
So
you get the 2-3% rate, but you're paying $20 for a loaf of bread.
Right. And so nothing comes free. If we want better rates, if we want all this free money, we're going to see an impact of it. And I think we're seeing now the impact of where we were 5 years ago in the real estate market. And for the people that bought at the 2s and 3s, woohoo, awesome.
Yeah, awesome.
If you refied at the 2s and 3s, you are so smart. Stay there. But it has also not helped to contribute to our housing crisis here in Rhode Island, because there are many people that their home no longer fits their needs. They either need to downsize, they need to upsize and expand. However, it makes absolutely no sense for them to sell their house and purchase another when they're going to triple their mortgage in
Which
doing
is understood.
So.
It's kind of a devil's advocate game. So, it's very much understood. But it also does, like you said, adds those layers to the supply issue that we're coming across. So, yeah, I agree with you 150% on that. And the rate sounds great, guys, but what comes with it?
I'm going to drop the cliche. Date the rate, marry the house. Real estate never loses value. I know it's the most cliche line out there. And for those of you who don't know, the rate's variable. All right. Rates can change, right? Like well, usually you get a fixed rate, but when they change, you can refi.
Yep.
There's a lot of other options and opportunity. You have real estate. You can take cash out equity. I mean, I'll leave that to Joe, but there's so many things you can do with real estate
Amen.
than just live in the home.
Amen.
If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about the home buying process, what would it be?
That's another good one.
That's a toughie, huh?
That's another good one. Okay. If I could wave my magic wand. I guess if I had to wave my magic wand to change something about the buying process, I guess I would like more eagerness. And I guess what I mean by that is I hate that in a lot of cases for housing, there is fear behind it.
Yeah.
Whether it be, you
Yes.
know, it is your first big purchase and all that stuff. I would absolutely love for just people just take a chance. Take a leap of faith. You know what I'm saying? Just it costs you nothing but maybe a little bit of time to have a conversation. And some people, they need it. The conversation, the education, all that stuff. So if I could wave my magic wand, I just wish more people knew it's okay to be nervous, but understand just having the conversation to get that information to help you be not so nervous.
Right.
Literally costs you nothing but just a few minutes of your time.
Right.
So, and that'd probably be the biggest one for me, because outside of that, I could be very biased, but where I am currently working at Main Street Home Loans, our process is awesome. So process wise, I don't feel like I'm starving, neither my clients. But the reason why I'm saying, if people were more open just having the conversation, it would just allow me the opportunity to just be that much more helpful.
Right.
To more families that, to your point, they don't realize that they could do it.
Absolutely. So it's like faith and fear, right? They can't live in the same place, right?
Correct.
And this is your biggest financial investment. You know nothing about it. You don't even know if you're going to qualify. There's a lot of fear there, right?
Oh, 100%.
And what I'm getting from you, Joe, is like take a leap of faith on yourself, because what you don't know is what you don't know.
Yeah.
And we
Bet on
never know.
yourself and believe in yourself. Like I said
Yes,
earlier,
just
to where that's the reason why I didn't
have
go
a
into
little
sales.
faith. Just have a little faith, because the faith and fear can't live in the same place at all. But I love that, Joe. Like that, just take that leap of faith on yourself. Know that you deserve better. You deserve your own piece of real estate. If we broke numbers down for everyone and what they're paying on someone else's investment, they would probably throw up at the end of the day,
More
right?
than likely.
Yeah. And
More than likely.
right? And we know that, and that's how it makes us feel. I was that fearful first-time home buyer, me personally. I knew not a thing about real estate. Again, like I said, I thought I needed $850K. Got a great realtor. I wasn't licensed at the time, obviously. Got a great realtor, great lender. Guided me through everything. Couldn't even believe how achievable it was. But had we not taken that leap of faith and gotten over the fear factor of I'm always going to be renting, we would be sitting there. So I think you nailed it with like, man, believe in yourself and take a leap of faith and like just go after it. Just contact Joe.
Don't
Just
let
reach
yourself
out.
be the reason why you're stopping yourself at being the next better version of yourself.
Yes.
So, and like, I could tell you, like, even family, friends, which you could probably attest to this too. Like, sometimes you guys are at Thanksgiving, cookout, or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been thinking about this, but you know,
Oh,
no,
all the
I don't want to do it. Whoa, why?
Yeah,
And then
why?
you're sitting there over a burger having a conversation, and like, oh wow,
Right.
I didn't really. That's how it would work.
Yeah.
It's just I get why people can be nervous, because it is a big obligation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, too, why not bet on yourself? If you
Yeah.
know that making that decision would provide a betterment to your life, why not?
Yeah.
Why
absolutely.
not try to get some info on it? Doesn't hurt.
Absolutely. So while we're on the motivational path, I want to go back a little bit to the Joe with his first career, who was a little bit nervous about getting into the mortgage industry. If you could go back to that time in your life and talk to your younger self, what's something that you would tell that younger self? like career based? Like what would you go back and tell
I would have started
that
being an LO right out of high school. Once I got in and realized my personality was definitely for it, and then again, just being able to stand behind this service and product that I know I'm genuinely making a positive difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
It became so much easier.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
Yeah, I don't need to, any conversation I have, it doesn't feel forced. I would have started right away. And not even that too, just because, think about it. If I could have added another 8 years, 7 years onto what I'm already doing now, imagine how many more families I would have been able to help.
Yeah.
In that time frame.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And don't get me wrong, obviously if we were to have, that would have been, some times I would have gone through like anything else. But that's 100%. I would have started doing this much sooner. What I've learned and have been able to accomplish in the doors I've been able to go in through, I would have never guessed.
Yeah.
I would have never guessed. Yeah. And it just really came up to just again, like I'm telling all you renters out there or people that are even thinking about, trying to buy a house, take the leap of faith, bet on yourself, just get the information.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, which is not a worst case scenario, you get yourself a game plan you can follow.
That's right. We always talk about that to-do list, that game plan to get there, because if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't, because here's the thing. Okay, worst case scenario, say it takes you 2 or 3 years, but you're in a house. Guess what? You own property.
Yeah.
You're there.
Yep.
That's it.
That's it.
Then
There's a lot you can do with that property.
Yeah, compared to those people that don't take action, they're more than likely not.
Yeah.
You already got a cap on top of your head. You're a homeowner.
Yeah.
So
and that in itself is a giant achievement.
No, 100%. People are willing to go to 4 years of college to get a degree. Why not take some time to get your financial snapshot squared away to make a real difference in your life with having housing?
Yeah. I love
Why
that,
not?
Joe. So good. So I'm going to tie this real estate and entrepreneurial because, yes, you are in the real estate industry, but you're doing things involved in real estate that are entrepreneurial, that are outside of your position, which is the wholesaling and the investing and being a landlord, and seeing that there are so many other opportunities in real estate to grow and advance in your life professionally, personally, financially,
Correct.
Right? What advice would you give to someone listening right now who dreams of starting their own business or pursuing something that they're interested and passionate about, such as, wholesaling, mortgage lending, working with people? What would you say to them who dreams of having these achievements but feels like it's out of reach?
It's not. It all comes down to how much you're willing to work into it. And one thing I will say, whatever that field may be for you, find out who's the best at it, start taking pages from their books.
Yes.
Because one thing I will tell you, and I was that scared person before, like even before all the extra stuff I've tried dabbling into because again, business at the end of the day, I keep going back to school, but I'm going to say it. It's like you're going to college. You're not 100% sure what you want to do with your life,
right.
And what direction you want to go. So you're going to try this, try that, what works, what doesn't. And trust me, with real estate, I've done the very same thing. Because of what I do for work, may I be a landlord forever? Maybe not. May I do wholesaling forever? Maybe not.
Right.
But as these doors continue to open, I'm trying these things out to see what really meshes with me, what really, speaks to me. So one thing I would say to folks that are trying to do it, 100%, if you are already passionate about something and you want to make money off it, make business off it, try your best to find someone that's already doing it.
Yes.
There's no need to reinvent the wheel, the whole nine, especially when it comes to business. Find out who it is, take a page from their book, because the point I'm trying to make here is when you start talking to these folks that are already established, already very successful, they have zero problem giving you the playbook.
Yeah. Yeah. Typically, they're happy to share. Most successful people
more
are
cases
happy to
than
share.
not. They're very happy to give back in that retrospect because, what's that phrase? You give a man a fish, he eats a meal. You teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. That same concept goes. So if they know they can teach you this, and they will.
Yeah.
it just boils down to what are you going to do with that information?
Right.
Because then the big part about it, which I'm not going to lie, it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's sometimes overnight work. Sometimes it is, sacrificing on going out with the boys or the girls or whatever that may look like for you. But point being is, if this is meaningful enough for you, it shouldn't matter. And also, you have to make sure, the reason why I'm saying this too, you pay attention to your circle is because, listen, I can tell you right now, if you disappeared for a year, 2, 3 years, whatever that may have looked like to set up the business how you wanted to be the better you, I can guarantee you when you're back in the picture, if your friends, your true friends haven't already been checking up on you, they're going to welcome you with open arms.
Absolutely.
True circle, they don't. I had a friend that he literally disappeared for 33 years, but for the right reasons. He put his head down. He opened this extremely successful pizza business.
Wow.
And that essentially became the vehicle to build an empire. This kid is 2 years younger than me.
Awesome.
Doesn't need to work.
So awesome.
But him and the families are hardworking, but he just went all in on himself. So don't be shy to get that information. Again, don't think those people that are doing it will not show you.
Right.
They'll give you everything, and they'll even say it too. Hey, we give the playbook. We just know you won't do it. Because it does take that level of drive.
Because I think the stats are like, and Dan Martell was saying this in his podcast the other day, like it's like a 3% of all people that learn something actually try to master it.
Yeah.
And get great at it. But what I'm hearing from you, Joe, is one, we're going to choose faith over fear.
Amen.
And whether it's entrepreneurship, a real estate journey, whatever it may be, right? Personal, professional. I also heard go all in on yourself.
Yep.
Right? Be mindful of your circle.
Yep.
And find a mentor.
Correct.
Find something that you love, that you're passionate about. Find someone that's already doing it awesome. And it can be as much, and I know for me, it's as much as, okay, well, Mel Robbins and Dan Martell are not at my beck and call, but I make sure that I'm listening to the audiobooks and make sure that I'm listening to the podcast and I'm taking in as much information as I can to learn from all these different outlets, all the, the awesome books that we read. I know you're in a mastermind. I'm in a women's monthly mastermind for business. Like all these things to kind of keep us relevant, keep us educated, up with the times. But also, we know now, we've grown enough that we know we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No.
We just need to go align ourselves and surround ourselves with the people that are already doing it.
Correct. And when you have a circle like that too, and people, I'm telling you this right now, don't be shy of change. Because it will happen.
It does happen.
Friend circles will grow apart in some cases. It's natural. It's fine.
Not everyone grows with you.
Correct. Because let's be honest, everyone has their own path and plan.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that. But also don't be shy to take in, a better, I hate to say it like this, but a better circle.
Yeah.
Because if you plan on opening businesses, you plan on building this machine to where you have employees and maybe you serve the country nationally, whatever that may look like for you. Guess what? More likely than not, especially when you start getting into mentorship space to try and get mentors, all that stuff, they're going to tell you flat out, you're going to start getting into circles of big names in the games doing it. Yeah. And like anything else, similar to you and I, how we've built up our friendship, do enough business in the same line of work that you guys are aligned at, whether it be building up entrepreneurship, whatever it is, by default, you become very friendly with these people.
Right.
Because 9 out of 10 times, they're very much aligned with everything you're about.
By default, you almost create a new circle.
Correct. Like, I'm glad you brought up the mastermind group. Like, I have a set of friends that I grew up with, still have them, and I will have them to the day I die. They have different things they want to do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
I'm in the real estate space.
Yep.
And I want to really hit that hard to see where it brings me. So naturally, I'm in a mastermind now and what I like to call a group of savages. Yeah. These guys, they're in it day in and day out. There's builders, flippers, other agent. There's one of our buddies is going to start doing like coaching consultations and all that stuff too.
That's
and
awesome.
They're just awesome group of guys, and it's not just about talking about it. You want to be around a circle that they're walking the walk.
Right. There's execution, or there's already been instances
Yes.
of where they have accomplished what you're looking to do.
Yeah, because like everyone I try to circle myself with, you don't have to be the smartest one in the room, but if you're the most actionable and everything you say you're gonna do, you do, and you know, yes, some you're gonna win, some you're gonna lose, but even in the losses, there's lessons.
Always.
So I just, even myself, like even though I don't know what's gonna happen, I'll still do it.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out. Let's see what happens. And after that, the lesson is whether, you know, is it a good thing that happened or not so good thing.
Right.
And you kind of take it from there. But your group's going to elevate. Your circle's going to elevate. How you talk, how you handle things, your mindset. You know how much, and I'm not bringing up me, but once you get to that level of like where your priorities lie, it's almost so hard to get that person mad, like genuinely mad. Because they've built up so much mental thick skin and fortitude that they've already did the beating on themselves.
Right.
You know, between, you know, and usually the case is, am I doing enough? Am I moving fast enough? Am I growing fast enough? They've already done all the beating on themselves.
Yep.
So, but there's power within having control over your emotions because you're always a lot more clear. To not be rash or, you know, think things through and all that stuff. So a lot elevates when you start really doubling down yourself and just taking pages off of those, you know, big guys books, if you will.
Yeah.
But you just do it. Like,
there's not much more to it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's so simple, but they
so
will,
hard at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
they
so
will
easy
give
to
you the
say.
game. It's just some people can't get outside themselves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I was there. Was it fun to go out with the guys on the weekends, drink, not remember some of the nights, whatever, but was that all well and good? Sure. It was fun at the time.
That's not where you're at anymore. It's not the season you're in anymore, right?
It's not.
I'm a huge believer in seasons, and we've been through a lot of different seasons together. You went from a parent of one to a parent of two and started this whole family life and investing and wholesaling and everything else. If you would have asked me like 10 years ago, would I be sitting in a podcast room and just posting me, myself, my flaws, my everything, imperfect, and who I am on social media as a licensed agent for this many years? I would have been like, hell no. It's nothing I never thought of, right? But if I didn't do certain things and believe in myself, and then, like you said, like make sure that I'm like taking in the right stuff, like personal, you know, business books and personal development. And now we've got masterminds, surrounding myself with the right type of people, connecting with the right, I wouldn't be here. Let's just put it that way. It's all the years, last 5-6 years of growth that has happened to get me to this point where now I'm going to go, I don't even care if you edit this video or not. Go ahead and post it. Because all I want is for, one, I want to motivate and inspire people. I want the people looking at our podcast today to go, oh, shit, I want to do what Joe's doing. Oh, crap, Kristie never thought she'd be there. That's pretty freaking awesome too. Like, in the point of it, right, Joe, is like, you just have to do it.
No, you do.
You just have to do it. That's it.
You'll find very quickly that your horizons grow very quick because, again, you only know so much. Like, most of my family has never been in real estate in that capacity at all. I would have never known about wholesale or flips or, you know, contemplating builds or whatever that may look at, private money, if I didn't meet someone that did one of those things. It wouldn't have been for my family, that's for sure.
Right.
So I obviously had to step out of the comfort and get into those doors.
Yeah.
And then once you learn about, oh, wow, that people do that, you know, okay, how can I do that? You know, that's usually where the beginning question starts, but first you have to identify it.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, I can't stress enough, you know, how important it is to build those relationships, open those doors, and not be afraid to open those doors. Because, I mean,
it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's going to be, you know, and I mean, there's no other way to put it, but it's worth it. Like, from who I am now to who I was some years ago, I would not change it for the world. I tell my girlfriend that all the time too. She laughs at me sometimes. I'm like, baby, if you met me before, like when I was younger and doing all this,
you wouldn't even like me.
You wouldn't like me. We probably wouldn't be together.
Right.
because, but she's like, really? You think so? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I'll give myself a pat on the back. Like I feel like I've done a great deal of growth and all that stuff. But, until you start getting older and start looking back at these things, you're like, wow, it's starting to sound like my parents.
Oh my goodness, isn't that so true? Well, Joe, I thank you so much for joining me today on the Kristie Takes the Community podcast. Good friend of mine. We've been able to build quite an awesome friendship throughout our business relationship.
Yes,
and more importantly, we've helped a lot of people achieve their goals of homeownership. A lot of people that thought they never would, a lot of single women, a lot of younger people. And I know I'll be in this game doing it forever because, right, that cup that gets full, I'm so grateful that I have business partners like you to share that with and that feel the same way. And I know when we go to that closing table with our buyer client, like we are just as excited as they are.
Amen.
But also like helping each other grow.
Amen.
And you would learn something new and tell me all about it, right? Or if I heard an opportunity, and that's just half the battle. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, right, Joe? We didn't know each other from hole in the wall.
Nope.
We've helped so many people together, and we're going to continue to do that.
Amen.
I can't wait to see what you do in the future. I am so very proud of everything that you have accomplished to date, not just with making a name for yourself as a mortgage advisor, but in your own accomplishments of your investing and being a landlord and handling property management companies and just everything you constantly do to make sure that you are the very, very best resource for your clients and,
I appreciate it
and
very
can
much.
share some personal experiences. So one, thank you for taking the time to come sit with me today.
My pleasure.
Two, I definitely think we're going to have you on again. We only hit one area of real estate and you and I have a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And Joe, I just want to say thank you so much, man. This was just awesome. And
No, thank you for having me. This is my first time doing this, and I got to say.
This is your first podcast?
Yeah, it's my first time doing a podcast, so it was actually pretty cool.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. That's awesome, Joe. I actually had only done my first podcast like 2 months before I started my own. And that's where I announced my podcast on the podcast. So I was like, shit, no, I really have to do the podcast. But I think you remember back in COVID, like when we had first started our relationship, I was going to small businesses with my ring light and my iPhone.
Yep, I remember that.
And doing interviews like this. And I called it Kristie Takes the Community.
Yes, you did.
And it was just based around supporting the community. It was in COVID. I wanted the small businesses to get out there. I was sick of seeing everyone shut down. So I did the best I can with my own stuff. And had I have known, like fast forward many years later, I'd have this awesome professional space to now bring Kristie Takes the Community. So I'm really excited to have you.
You deserve it. You're
as
hardworking.
part of it. Thank you so much, Joe. And let's give you a little plug. This is Joe Travers, Main Street Home Loans. How can we contact you, Joe?
You can contact me at my phone number. My phone number is 401-808-0982. Or if you'd like to go onto my website, it is mainstreethomeloans.com/Joseph Travers.
Yes.
And if you're a social media bug, get me on Instagram. It's JTrav, ITSJTRAV.
It's J Trav.
It's JTrav.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Kristie Takes the Community. Remember, every small action makes a big impact, and together we're building something greater. Stay inspired, stay connected, and keep showing up for yourself and your community, because when we grow together, we thrive together. Remember, we can have more because we can become more. If you love today's episode, be sure to subscribe, share, and keep the conversation going. Until next time, let's keep taking the community to new heights.